not trying to be doom and gloom with this. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. I'm just trying to be a realistic person, looking at the facts of a situation and then sort of assimilating it to what we should expect with arguably one of the biggest video games in recent memory. Now, I see the Nintendo Switch in a very interesting position because yes, it's still selling pretty well. We're starting to see little dips here and there, but for the most part, it's still a beast of a system as far as sales are concerned. Over 111 million units sold. I mean, that's almost 10 times the amount that the Wii U sold in its entire lifespan. So things have been going very well for Nintendo. But obviously, one of the biggest games coming out in 2023, arguably the biggest game that we know about at least, is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. There's been a lot of interesting things that have been happening with this game. And in light of recent events, in light of just thinking about situations and how they've been handled, I have to feel like there's a little bit of worry with this game. There's a little bit of concern with this game, and it's not necessarily, oh, you know, Pokemon has all these glitches, Pokemon doesn't run all that optimized. That's not what I'm talking about. That honestly plays a very small role in my thinking about this, because I honestly feel like that's more of a Game Freak situation. That's more of a Pokemon company situation. But Tears of the Kingdom is going to be the game of 2023 as far as we know. Between today and when Tears of the Kingdom comes out, nothing really matters for the Nintendo Switch. You look at the first party games that have been announced thus far for the year. I mean, Fire Emblem Engage looks cool. I do like the, you know, it looks kind of VTuber-ish, and a lot of people don't like that art style, but I think the art style of the game is fine. Like, I actually like that it doesn't have the whole sort of school mechanic, which I didn't really get into with Three Houses. I'm more into the, you know, other side of strategy RPG. So I think this game has a lot of promise. There's a Kirby remake for some reason. Kirby's been getting his shine on the Nintendo Switch. But May 23, that's the big month. That's when Tears of the Kingdom comes out, which I will probably call Breath of the Wild 2 many times in this video. I'm sorry, it's burned into my mind, but I can't help but feel a bit of uncertainty about how this game is going to play out, how this game is going to perform. Because at the end of the day, we as consumers shouldn't care about how well something sells. If you work in the video game industry, you worked on the game, or you talk about, you know, video game sales, you're a content creator or something like that, then you could definitely be interested in it. But most of us are not. Most of us are just people who buy, consume games, and then, you know, look at the game as how it plays, how it runs, all that sort of stuff, and then create our own sort of, you know, mindset about this game in itself. The sales of the game are negligible. That doesn't matter to us. We care about the quality of the game. When you look at something like the original Breath of the Wild, in retrospect, it doesn't quite shine as bright as I feel it did on day one on the Switch. The Switch was this unknown system, okay? Breath of the Wild obviously was a Wii U designed game through and through, that at the 19th hour, they decided, you know what? We need to shift this to our new system. Nobody's buying a Wii U. We'll put it out on day one on the new system, essentially a Wii U game on the Switch. Now, when you look at the performance of that game on day one, it wasn't great, I would say. I mean, it was solid enough. I played through the game over the course of 4 days and just beat the hell out of it because I was absolutely in love with it, but there were performance issues with the game. The game initially had dips down to 20 frames per second for large periods of time. Now, that could have just been poor optimization of the Switch version of the game. Like I said, I'm willing to give you a little bit more of a pass. This was brand new hardware, okay? This was a game that released on two very different types of hardware. It's understandable. They did do a patch for the game as well that fixed a lot of those areas. You know, some areas still definitely had those issues within it as far as the frame rate is concerned. The resolution itself was fine for 2017. You know, it was a 900p game docked, a 720p game in handheld mode, and it actually ran a little bit more optimized in handheld mode on day one than it did for the Switch in docked mode. Now, that was all fine and well. You know, like I said, not only was it a game that released upon multiple systems, each with different architecture, each with different unique features, but you have the fact that this was a very ambitious title. This was something that The Legend of Zelda had never seen before. You know, it was pretty much like taking the original Zelda game and just, you know, making it in a modern sort of thing, minus the dungeons, of course. That open world setting, that open feeling where if you see something, you can go there. You know, there is no real set path that you have to go on with it. You find your own path, you carve your own path. And I feel like that's what made the game so great. It was something to behold. It was something like we had never seen before with the Legend of Zelda franchise. Now, fast forward to 2023. We finally have the long-awaited sequel, Breath of the Wild 2, aka Tears of the Kingdom. A game that I don't think many of us thought was going to take this long to create, simply because of the fact that it was established that it was using the same engine from the original Breath of the Wild game. Obviously, just more optimized. Now you're more familiar with the hardware. It's been a couple years. You should be more familiarized with this hardware. It was supposed to come out in 2021. It was supposed to come out in 2022. Now it's coming out in 2023. Presumably. I don't know. I don't think it'll get delayed, but the delays are what lead me to believe something might be slightly off with this. You know, Zelda games traditionally have been delayed quite a bit, especially 3D Zelda games. It's well established, but multiple delays, that's a little bit more concerning, especially like I said, we're using the same engine with Breath of the Wild. So what's taking so long? What are we actually doing with this? Is this a clever marketing decision, or is there stuff within the game that's just not running right and you need more time to optimize it? I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is. Because when you look at it, it honestly could go one of two ways. There's a large contingency of people that believe the Tears of the Kingdom is going to launch alongside of a new piece of Nintendo Switch hardware. Not necessarily a full-on successor, a refresh of the current system that we have, and this will be a showpiece for the system. Much like, you know, Breath of the Wild was the game for the Switch when it came out, this is kind of trying to rekindle that. So the delays could be a part of that. That's what a lot of people are running with. And then there's the other side of the coin. There's a side of the coin that concerns me, because if this is just simply delays because of some new hardware, I don't think anyone's gonna mind that. I think most Nintendo Switch owners that are watching this channel, that play a lot of games and stuff, they want to see that a bump in performance. They want to see that bump in visual quality, visual clarity, in frame rates and stuff. I think that's what we all want at the end of the day. We don't necessarily care if it's a revision or a brand new system, whatever the case may be. There's that other side of the coin that maybe, just maybe, they're trying to do a little bit too much with this game. And all the things that they're trying to do within this game are essentially making more problems arise, thus the series of delays. I bring us back once again to my main point. At the end of the day, this is still a game that is optimized on an engine that has existed since well before 2017. Let's be realistic. The game released in March of 2017. Obviously, the game had gone gold probably a couple months before that. They wanted to coincide with the Nintendo Switch release. So we could really say 2016 for this. You've had this engine for 7 years. You've worked on DLC for this engine as well with the Breath of the Wild DLC. Are you trying to cram too much into the game? Are you trying to cram too many radical ideas that are cool, but they hinder the optimization of this version of the game? You're trying to do too much. The last time we saw the Breath of the Wild art style was, of course, a game that was a completely different game, with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, taking place before the events of the original Breath of the Wild game, kind of filling out the story. A solid game. I didn't like it as much as Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition because I like the bigger variety of Zelda characters and people being picked from all of the Zelda franchises as opposed to just Breath of the Wild. And of course, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition ran at a silky smooth 60 frames per second, whereas this game often dipped below 30 frames per second. And that was the last time we saw that art style used in a game. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily indicative of Nintendo. I'm just saying that's something to think about, because a lot of people seem to downplay Nintendo's involvement in that game as more viewing it as a Koei Tecmo game. I don't think Nintendo would take their property and license it out and then have to authorize, okay, this build of the game is great, ship it. You know, they have the final say in this situation. This was more of a hands-on experience for Nintendo. Now, what does that have to do with Tears of the Kingdom? I'm not quite sure. And that's the thing that kind of, makes this an interesting topic. I feel like until this game at least gets a full-on showcase or releases, we're going to be having these sort of discussions because the game comes out in May. We've seen, I don't know, maybe 1:30 of this game with very, very, select gameplay being shown in this. Seen a lot of falling from the skies and the door that opens up, and I go through a solid wall, or go up through the wall or something like that, a solid piece of ground. But you can't really say what this game is doing. The Zelda lore fans out there will crucify me for saying that, but I'm not even talking about the story. You guys can do whatever you want with the story. I look at the Zelda games on a very superficial level. I take these stories as individual stories. The whole Hyrule timelines and Hyrule histories and stuff, you can keep that, because that's look, my brain, there's only so much in my brain that I can dedicate to these convoluted stories. And I feel like Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid are taking up that space, and I'm not willing to get rid of one of those to add in the Hyrule history. But I wonder what the gameplay is actually going to be. What's going to be so different? What's the hook here that took so long with this game? Is there performance issues with the game, and that's why it's been delayed several times? Because I feel like Nintendo wants this to be a great experience. I feel like, sometimes they do half-ass games. Mario Strikers Battle League, that's a half-ass game. That's a half-ass game through and through. The fact that there's, you can't do 4-on-4 in that game, but you can do it in other games like Splatoon. Zelda is an IP that Nintendo holds very near and dear to their heart, so they like to put their best foot forward. That's why mainline Zelda games are usually some of the best games in the year that release. I mean, that's just a fact. Look at the review scores of these games. But I feel like maybe they're just cramming in a bit too much. Maybe they're trying to do too much with this game, and that's why it keeps getting pushed back further and further and further. Are there issues with the performance of this game, the optimization of this game? Because I don't think Nintendo really wants to deal with that again. The jig is up with this. Okay, reviewers often gave these Nintendo games passes for issues with the technology and issues with the frame rate and issues with the graphics. But now everyone is kind of coming to this, decision that, hey, some of this stuff is unacceptable. Some of this stuff is detrimental to the game. Some of this stuff just looks completely out of place in the modern gaming landscape. And I applaud them for finally coming to that decision, even though, we've been taking games on a case-by-case basis, and if a game is impressive, we give it its flowers. If a game doesn't look all that great and run all that great, we also talk about that. This is just a discussion, though. I just feel like there's something more to the situation than simply just, we need more time. Well, why do you need more time? Why do you need more time, multiple times, with this game? And the lack of any sort of, concrete trailer, concrete presentation of this game just makes me wonder. I think we'll finally get our answer. A lot of people seem to think that at the Game Awards, there's going to be some Zelda stuff. I don't think so. I think you're getting that at the February Nintendo Direct, where we finally start to get some answers about this game. But what's going on with it? Is this a strategy by Nintendo for marketing potentially new hardware? Or is this a situation where they're just trying to get way too ambitious with the game, and in the end result, the performance of the game is going to suffer? I hope that's not the case. Zelda games are some of my favorite games of all time. I love Breath of the Wild. I love A Link Between Worlds. There's a nice choice cut for you. Nobody talks about that game anymore. That game was awesome. Ocarina of Time. I have the gold box N64 cartridge. I love these games. I remember getting Ocarina of Time, as a kid when I was 13. I got a package sent in my name from Nintendo. I opened up the package and it was Ocarina of Time for the N64. I freaked out. I called my mother. I was like, I guess I've been a subscriber to Nintendo Power for so long that they sent me this game. And she was like, you're an idiot. I ordered it for you. They must have just put your name because your name was on the subscription. You weren't supposed to open that. Happy birthday. I think it was a birthday gift or something. But she let me keep it. She let me enjoy it. I just hope for the best for this game because honestly, while stuff will come out between now and then, for Nintendo Switch owners, nothing else really matters. Nothing else is going to hold a candle to this game. But that lingering question remains in my mind. Why? Why has it been delayed so much? What's the issue here? Are you doing it for a marketing reason and you got something coming alongside of it? Or are you doing it because you're having fundamental problems with this game and you're trying to do too much? Let me know what you think the reason is in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Don't get pissy. There's no reason to get pissy over this. It's a discussion. I'm sharing some potential concerns that I have with this game, potential concerns with the hardware that this game is releasing on, because I want this game to be great. I want it to look great and run great and play great and be fun and be a great experience. I don't want it to be held back by restrictions in 2023 when the video game medium is advancing and trying to push forward. Those are just my thoughts on it. Give me your feedback in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.